Everyone thinks they're the main character. And statistically speaking, that's actually correct. If you're not the main character of your own life, you're either having a very bad day or you've achieved enlightenment and now refer to yourself in third person as a vessel of experience, which is honestly worse. But the real question is, why does it times feel times like everyone is the protagonist in a cosmic coming-of-age movie with emotionally symbolic weather and carefully curated background music? This is basically what people call main character syndrome, the modern phenomenon of self-centered perception, where your life doesn't just happen, it unfolds. Like a Netflix original with strong narrative pacing and questionable writing in season 3. And the funny part is, this isn't a bug in the system, it's the entire system. Because humans don't experience reality directly, we experience a heavily edited director's cut built on narrative psychology, where your brain constantly turns random events into a coherent story starring you, with supporting characters, side quests, and emotional arcs that may or may not exist outside your head. Your brain isn't asking, what happened? It's asking, what does this times mean for my character development? That's life as storytelling, in action. And once you realize that, you start noticing something a bit unsettling. Every awkward silence, missed text, or weird interaction isn't just an event. It becomes identity construction material. You're not just late to a meeting. You're someone who is always slightly behind in life, but trying their best. You're not just ignored in a group chat. You're slowly being pushed out of the social narrative. This is cognitive framing of experience. Doing parkour over reality and landing directly into psychological narrative bias. But where does this come from? Well, humans have been doing this for a long time. Like, ancient long. We didn't invent storytelling. We just upgraded it to HD and added anxiety. Most cultures have been built on mythological storytelling structures. The hero's journey archetype shows up everywhere. A hero, a call to adventure, a struggle, a transformation, and a return as a changed person. You leave your village, face symbolic monsters, learn a lesson, come back different. Even your average Monday feels like it's trying to be Act 2 of that structure. And in that structure, you get character archetypes too. There's the hero, you, obviously, the mentor, some random older person who said one useful sentence in 2014, and the shadow self high. Yeah, that's me. Your shadow self, Jungian psychology, is basically the part of you that gets summoned every time you say, I'm fine, but stare at the ceiling for 3 hours, questioning your entire personality. According to Carl Jung, who basically built the entire "you are secretly symbolic" industry, all of this comes from the collective unconscious, a shared mental template where humans recycle the same symbolic storytelling systems across cultures. Which is why ancient myths, modern movies, and your intrusive thoughts all somehow follow the same emotional logic. Because deep down, everything is just variation of, I must become someone after suffering slightly first. Now this is where things get interesting, because once you accept archetypal psychology, you realize something mildly dangerous. If life is a story, then you are times, always, times interpreting yourself as a character. Which means your identity is not fixed. It's a narrative self-concept, constantly rewritten by memory, emotion, and whatever embarrassing thing you did last Tuesday. That's identity narrative formation. And it explains a lot. Like why people turn random inconveniences into destiny-defining moments. I missed the bus, which made me realize I need to quit my job and move to Bali. No, you didn't. You just missed the bus. But your brain is committed to meaning-making through stories, so it upgrades inconvenience into revelation. This is also where egocentric thinking shows up. Not in a villain way, more like a default setting where your brain assumes you are the reference point of reality. Because from your perspective, you times are. Everything happens to you, so naturally everything must be about you. That's how self-importance bias and a little bit of ego inflation sneak in without you noticing. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet internal narrator going, this moment is significant for my arc, even when it's just you dropping your phone for the 6th time. Now let's zoom out, because modern life didn't exactly help with this. We've built entire systems that reinforce modern individualism and social media self-narratives where everyone is constantly curating their identity like a public story. Your life is no longer just lived, it's posted, edited, captioned, and algorithmically optimized for engagement, which means your worldview construction is now partially outsourced to an audience. You don't just ask, "What happened today?" You ask, "Does this fit my narrative?" And suddenly, everything becomes content. Even sadness has a brand aesthetic now. But this is where the story obsession goes even deeper. Because storytelling isn't just psychological, it's also spiritual, philosophical, and honestly a bit chaotic. Religious traditions are some of the most powerful, cultural storytelling frameworks ever created. Take Christian theology narrative, for example. You've got a cosmic structure that includes creation, fall, sacrifice, redemption, and transformation. Within it, Jesus Christ hero archetype becomes central. Birth, mission, conflict, betrayal, death, and then the resurrection narrative, arguably one of the most intense character development arcs ever written. Crucifixion and redemption aren't just historical claims in this framework. They function as symbolic storytelling systems that encode suffering, meaning, and transformation into a universal structure. Death and rebirth symbolism shows up everywhere in religion because psychologically, humans are wired to understand change as narrative collapse and reconstruction. Something ends. Something becomes new. The story continues. That's not just theology. It's existential meaning-making. And again, your brain loves this so much that it applies it everywhere. Breakup, death and rebirth arc. Failed exam, trial by fire arc. Got ignored in a group setting, betrayal arc. Your life is constantly being translated into symbolic interpretation of life events, whether you want it or not. This is the overlap between myth and psychology, where meaning isn't discovered, it's constructed. And this is where things get slightly ironic. Because the more we understand narrative psychology, the more we realize that main character syndrome isn't really a disorder. It's just symbolic cognition running at full power with no brakes. You are literally built to turn chaos into story. The problem is not that you think you're the main character. The problem is that everyone else is also running their own hero's journey, which means from the outside, reality looks less like a coordinated story and more like 8 billion overlapping scripts written by people who all think they're in different genres. Some are in romance, some are in tragedy, some are in a comedy that no one else is laughing at. And occasionally, someone is in a full-blown mythic saga involving destiny, betrayal, and a coworker named Dave. At a deeper level, this is philosophy of stories, colliding with perception versus reality in identity. Because perception is structured, but reality is not obligated to follow narrative rules. There is no guarantee of arcs, closure, or thematic consistency. Sometimes, things just happen, which is honestly the most offensive plot twist of all. But here's the final layer. Even knowing all of this doesn't really stop it. Because your brain doesn't want truth in a vacuum, it wants truth wrapped in story. So, you'll still wake up tomorrow and unconsciously cast yourself as the protagonist. You'll still assign meaning to random events. You'll still feel like life is building towards something. Because that's not a belief system you chose. It's a meaning construction framework, embedded in cognition itself. So yeah, everyone thinks they're the main character. Not because they're narcissists, but because the human mind is basically a storytelling machine running a continuous simulation called me. And the real twist is, it kind of has to. If you enjoyed this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and maybe drop a comment with your own main character moment, the kind you only realize was dramatic times after times it happened. And remember, you're not just watching the story, you're also writing it.